Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a complicated stack of research, articles, new legislation, financial frameworks, and we really just distill it all down.
We give you the shortcut.
The absolute shortcut to being well-informed. And today, we're tackling what might be the hardest financial phase of all.
I think it is.
The messy middle.
The messy middle. It's that critical financial decade. We're talking roughly your 30s and your 40s.
Right.
And it's just defined by this immense complexity. On one hand, you're usually reaching your peak earning potential.
Which feels amazing.
It feels great. But that new earning power is, it's instantly and just aggressively offset by peak responsibility.
Exactly. We're talking about these massive financial anchors that all seem to drop at the same time.
All at once.
The weight of a mortgage, the cost of raising children, which just keeps going up and up.
Oh, it accelerates.
And then there's that stress of being in the sandwich generation.
Caring for aging parents while you're still funding your kids' lives.
It's unbelievable. And you still have those, persistent high-interest debts from college or maybe from your 20s.
Right.
It's this feeling that you're finally making serious money, but at the same time, you're just bleeding cash in 3 different directions every single month.
And that feeling of chaos, that's precisely why we call it the messy middle. So our mission today, it's not to give you just, some general advice.
No.
We want to provide you with a structured, almost an architectural approach to navigate this.
I like that. Architectural.
We're synthesizing very specific strategies. We're focused on robust capital growth, forensic-level tax optimization, and really crucial risk transfer for anyone post-30.
And the framework we've pulled together for this is, it's incredibly relevant. We're drawing heavily on recent legislative updates.
The latest.
We have the key numbers from the IRS announcements for 2026, major provisions from the Secure 2.0 Act.
Which is a game changer.
And those foundational guides from the heavy hitters, Vanguard on liquidity, the DIME method for asset protection. You are getting the roadmap built on the latest rules.
And you really have to adopt this structured approach right now.
Now.
Because this entire deep dive, it all comes down to one totally irreplaceable element.
Time.
When you were in your 20s, saving often felt, a bit exploratory. You're testing the waters.
Sure.
But in your 30s and 40s, you have to shift. It has to be a deliberate, structured, even a multi-generational strategy.
And the source material highlights this crucial mathematical point. For anyone with a 30-year horizon from now.
Which is most of our listeners in this demographic.
Your systematic savings contributions and the returns your investments generate. They contribute roughly equal amounts to your final wealth.
Think about that. Roughly equal.
That is just a staggering realization. It means the framework, the habits you build right now.
The discipline.
That discipline of systematic saving is literally half the battle won, mathematically.
Precisely. If you waste time in this decade, if you let that lifestyle creep take over, you lose compounding potential that you can never, ever buy back.
You just can't.
So what we're going to unpack today are the 3 core pillars that really define success in this messy middle. First, mastering your cash flow and implementing what we call tiered liquidity.
Okay.
Second, protecting your human capital, which is, your ability to earn money.
The engine.
And third, maximizing your tax efficiency using all these expanded 2026 limits and beyond. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. Let's start right at the foundation. Cash flow management. If you're still using that super restrictive, cut every expense to zero budget from college,
it's not going to work.
That rigid approach is just going to fail you in this decade because life demands spending. You have kids, you have a mortgage.
So budgeting has to evolve. It has to go from being a chore, something restrictive, to being a strategic system for managing these increasingly complex inflows and outflows.
And the primary enemy here, all the sources call it the same thing.
Lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep, that insidious tendency where your spending just rises in lockstep with your income.
Right. You get a big raise, and instead of banking all of it, you upgrade the car.
Or the house.
You spring for more expensive vacations, or you move to a bigger, more costly home, and you've effectively just negated the entire financial gain.
So to combat that, the analysts really suggest moving to a more resilient structural model.
Yes.
And that's often encapsulated in the 60-20-20 framework. Tell us exactly how that benchmark works for this post-30 demographic.
So it's a really effective and I think behaviorally sound benchmark for this stage of life. It's not about restriction, it's about allocation.
Yeah.
So it allocates 60% of your after-tax income to fixed expenses.
The must-haves.
The must-haves. Housing, essential groceries, utilities, transportation, your minimum debt payments, all of that is in the 60%.
Okay.
Then 20% goes directly to your financial goal contributions. That's your systematic saving, your investing, and any aggressive debt reduction you're doing. Yeah.
And the last 20.
The final 20% is set aside for discretionary spending.
The fun money.
That's the fun money. And it's critical that it's there.
I really appreciate that this model explicitly includes 20% for fun. Because the big critique we always hear about traditional budgeting is that it's just not sustainable.
It's Bill.
It doesn't allow for the realities of life, and that leads to, behavioral burnout. You just give up.
It's a critical behavioral insight. That 20% discretionary bucket, it prevents the burnout. But it also does something else.
What's that?
It ensures that the other 20%, the part for your financial goals, is treated as a non-negotiable expense.
So it's just like the rent or the power bill.
Exactly. You pay it first. The goal isn't restriction. It's just proper allocation. You're telling your money where to go.
Okay, but that's 60% for fixed expenses?
Yeah.
I mean, that assumes a reasonable cost of living. What happens if you live in a super expensive area? San Francisco, London, New York City.
A great question.
Where 60% might barely cover your housing and utilities? How does this framework bend?
And that's a crucial point. For high cost of living areas, 60-20-20 is often, it's impossible.
Right.
And the sources acknowledge this. High housing costs might push your fixed expenses closer to 70%.
So what gives?
If that happens, you have to sacrifice the fund money allocation. You have to drop it, maybe to 10%.
Ouch.
It hurts. But you do it to preserve that core 20% financial goal contribution. In the messy middle, you can be flexible on consumption, but you absolutely cannot compromise the investment engine.
So if you can't get to 20% saving in a high-cost area,
Then the long-term solution might have to be bigger. A career change, maybe even relocation. You have to solve the income or the expense side of the equation more dramatically.
now that we have the structure, let's talk mechanics. Cash flow mechanics. How do you stop that salary increase or that big year-end bonus from automatically creeping into the other buckets?
This is where you have to be ruthless with automation. You implement what we call a self-funding mechanism.
Okay.
The moment a raise is announced or a bonus hits, you need to automate the transfer of that surplus cash directly into your investment accounts
Before it ever touches your main checking account.
before it's even in your line of sight. If the money bypasses your daily account, you just reduce the likelihood of spending it on impulse.
It's like the financial equivalent of hiding the cookies from yourself.
It is, because once that money is in your sight, your brain, it has already allocated it to something shiny.
So the key is recognizing that just having the money available makes it more likely you'll spend it.
It turns a temporary windfall into a mandated long-term investment.
Okay.
And what's more, this kind of structural budgeting, it has to account for those big irregular costs.
Right, the things that only happen once a year.
Exactly.
Right.
So many people only budget monthly, but expenses like annual insurance premiums, property taxes, or that big holiday travel bill,
They can shock your system.
they can shock your liquidity reserves because they only hit once or twice a year.
So you're saying I shouldn't just wait for the $12,000 property tax bill to show up in February and then drain my emergency fund?
You should not. Correct. Successful financial architects, they treat these irregular costs as monthly accruals.
So you break it down.
If your annual property tax is $12,000, you need to be budgeting and setting aside $1,000 every single month into a separate holding account,
Earmarked specifically for that.
specifically for that expense. This prevents those major bills from disrupting your cash flow or, more importantly, shocking that critical primary liquidity reserve we're about to talk about.
Speaking of liquidity, let's get into the evolution of the emergency fund.
Yes.
Because that's simple advice. 3 to 6 months of expenses, I mean, it's sound for someone starting out, but it often falls dramatically short for a 30-plus professional with dependents, a mortgage, and a high-value career.
The traditional emergency fund needs to be re-engineered. You have to think of it as a tiered liquidity ladder.
A ladder.
Because it acknowledges that not all financial emergencies are created equal, we need to separate them into two very distinct categories:
Which are?
spending shocks and income shocks.
Okay, so define those for us. And this is the key nuance that's often missed. Tell us where the money for each of those should be held.
Okay, so a spending shock. This is an unplanned, immediate expense.
The car breaks down.
The car breaks down, a sudden medical bill, the washing machine dies. For this, the source material suggests a baseline goal of saving $1,000, or maybe enough to cover half a month's essential expenses.
And this needs to be liquid.
Instantly accessible. These funds have to be in safe vehicles, a high-yield savings account, an FDIC-insured money market fund. Liquidity is paramount here. Growth is secondary.
And then there's the more serious category.
The income shock.
Right.
That's the potential loss of a job, a required career pivot, a temporary disability. This demands a much larger, much deeper reserve.
So this is where the 3 to 6 month rule comes in.
That's where it starts. The standard target is still 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses. But, and this is key for people in their 30s and 40s,
Aligned.
if you're considering a mid-career pivot, maybe going back for a new certification or starting a business, experts often recommend what they call a transition subsidy.
A transition subsidy. I like that. So more than 6 months.
Up to 12 months. And this 12-month cushion is crucial because it accounts for potential time off, the cost of new certifications, which can be, $1,000 to $3,000, and any insurance gaps that might pop up.
And this deeper long-term income shock reserve, it doesn't have to be held entirely in pure cash, does it?
No.
This is where that Roth IRA strategy comes in.
Absolutely. The immediate spending shock funds, that belongs in cash investments, no question.
Right.
But the deeper, longer-term income shock reserve can be strategically held in a taxable brokerage account or, optimally, within a Roth IRA.
Okay, so why the Roth IRA? Isn't there a big opportunity cost to keeping emergency cash in a retirement account?
That is a valid and a very important objection. The opportunity cost is real. You are sacrificing the full, uninterrupted compounding potential of that money.
But
the key feature of the Roth is its flexibility. Your contributions to a Roth IRA are withdrawable, tax-free and penalty-free, at any time, for any reason.
that's the key.
That makes it an excellent tax-advantaged place to hold money that's intended for long-term growth, but it still provides that safety valve.
So for those deeper reserves, where the risk of using it is lower.
The potential for higher returns in the Roth IRA helps offset the risk of just holding cash. It's a calculated trade-off between maximizing potential growth and maintaining that withdrawal flexibility.
That brings us perfectly to the other side of the ledger.
Liabilities.
Liability optimization. Now that we have the savings mechanism secure, we have to look at how debt is acting as a lead weight against our wealth creation.
Debt, especially consumer debt, is financial drag. Pure and simple. Strategic liability management is just a non-negotiable part of wealth architecture in the messy middle.
And the guideline for this really focuses on interest rate arbitrage, right? This 6% rule.
The 6% rule. It guides your entire attack strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the 6% rule telling the listener about how to prioritize their debt?
It's the debt threshold that dictates your financial priority. The sources suggest that any debt with an interest rate of 6% or higher,
And that's most credit cards.
most credit cards, some student loans, some auto loans, that debt should be prioritized for aggressive liquidation.
Before you do what?
Before you invest any new capital beyond securing your employer retirement match, you always get the match first.
Always get the match. But why 6%? Is that number arbitrary?
It's not arbitrary. It's grounded in investment reality.
Yeah.
Over the long term, historical equity market returns, like the S&P 500, they average around 9.5% before inflation.
Okay.
So paying down a debt with a 3% interest rate is giving you a guaranteed 3% return. The market can easily outpace that.
Right.
But once that guaranteed debt rate climbs above 6%, you are getting a guaranteed return that is very competitive with low to moderate risk market returns.
And the closer it gets to 10, 15, 20%.
The more mathematically essential it becomes to eliminate that debt first. That guaranteed return just far outweighs the risk reward of general market investing.
So if my student loan is at 3%, I just keep making minimum payments and invest the surplus.
Yes.
But if my credit card is at 18%, that's a guaranteed negative return that needs to be killed immediately.
That is the exact mathematical conclusion for preserving your net worth. Now, once you commit to repayment, you've got two main strategies.
The snowball and the avalanche. We hear about these all the time.
Right. And the source material is very clear that for high-interest debt, the choice is obvious.
So we have the psychological approach versus the mathematical one.
Exactly.
Wow.
The snowball method, that's where you pay off the smallest balances first. You get that psychological momentum, those quick wins.
Feels good.
It feels good. It's a behavioral strategy. The avalanche method, on the other hand, targets the highest interest rate debts first, and it just ignores the balance size.
And the consensus for the financially savvy listener is avalanche, especially when rates are sky high.
Absolutely. The avalanche method is mathematically superior for preserving net worth. When you're talking about consumer debt with an APR that can easily be over 20%,
Right.
that short-term psychological boost you get from the snowball is just dwarfed by the staggering long-term financial cost of that high-interest debt compounding against you.
So a true financial architect prioritizes the math over the momentary emotion when the interest rates are that punitive.
You have to.
What about the biggest liability most of our listeners have, the mortgage? This gets tricky because for a lot of people, paying down the mortgage just feels emotionally good, even if it's not always mathematically optimal.
That decision hinges entirely on the cost of your capital relative to the market. You have to compare your mortgage interest rate versus your expected long-term market returns.
So if you're one of the lucky ones who locked in a low rate a few years ago,
If you have an older mortgage, say under 4%, and historical equity returns are strong, then the rational choice is to invest all your surplus capital.
you're essentially earning more in the market than you're paying in interest.
You're using leverage effectively.
But that dynamic has changed so much in recent years.
It really has. If you're an established homeowner with a newer mortgage that's hovering near 6 or even 7%, that guaranteed risk-free return of paying down principal, it's suddenly much more attractive.
Right. It becomes very difficult to consistently beat a 6 or 7% guaranteed rate with low-risk investments.
Which makes aggressive mortgage payoff a very smart defensive move, especially if housing stability is a top priority for you. This is the definition of liability optimization. You're choosing the path of highest guaranteed return.
That shifting dynamic is so important. Okay, let's transition from defense to offense. We need to maximize the tax shield.
This is where it gets fun.
And this is where the recent IRS and legislative updates for 2026 really create some expanded opportunities for growth.
This is critical. The government has essentially just sweetened the pot on contribution limits because of cost of living adjustments, and this allows for tremendous tax-sheltered growth just as your income is peaking.
Give us the headline numbers for 2026. What should every listener be targeting for their primary retirement vehicle?
Okay, so for defined contribution plans, that's your 401k, 403b, and governmental 457 plans.
Yep.
The annual employee contribution limit is increasing to a staggering $24,500.
Wow.
That is a significant amount of money that can grow tax-deferred or tax-free. For traditional and Roth IRAs, the limit is increasing to $7,500.
And we also need to talk about the catch-up contributions for those 50 and over.
Yes.
Because many of our older listeners in the messy middle might be approaching that age.
Absolutely. The standard catch-up contribution for most 401k plans increases to $8,000 for those aged 50 and older.
So what's the total possible contribution?
This means someone 50 or older can contribute a total of $32,500 in 2026. That is a massive opportunity to make up for lost time or just accelerate your savings.
And the Secure 2.0 Act introduced a specific enhancement for a very narrow window of time.
Well, it did. It created this specialized, highly beneficial super catch-up limit.
Go ahead.
For employees aged 60, 61, 62, and 63, that catch-up limit remains higher at $11,250 in 2026.
So you have to be keenly aware of these age-specific spikes to maximize contributions when you're eligible.
You do, because it drops back down after age 63. This is really intentional legislation designed to help people who may have had their peak earning years interrupted for some reason.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The health savings account, the HSA.
The Stealth IRA.
For the 30 to 40-year-old, it's called the Stealth IRA because it offers a pinnacle of tax efficiency that's pretty much unmatched by any other vehicle.
It holds a powerful triple tax advantage.
Break that down.
1, your contributions are made pre-tax or they're tax deductible, so that reduces your income today. 2, the money grows tax-free. And 3, withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are also tax-free, even decades from now.
No other investment vehicle offers that trifecta.
None, which is why the financial sources just emphasize its importance so much.
And the 2026 limits for HSAs are rising as well, making this an even bigger lever to pull.
Correct. The individual limit climbs to $4,400, and the family limit hits $8,750.
And the strategic application here for people in their 30s and 40s isn't just about paying for today's copays.
Not at all. It's about using the HSA as a long-term investment vehicle for your retirement healthcare costs.
So if I have medical costs today, the strategy is to pay them out of pocket and just leave the HSA untouched.
That is the power move. You pay for your current medical costs out of pocket using regular after-tax dollars, and this is crucial, you save the receipts. You then let the funds sitting in your HSA compound for 20 or 30 years. In retirement, you can withdraw that money tax-free for healthcare costs, which often become the largest single expense in later life.
And what about those receipts you saved?
Even better. Because you kept the receipts from decades ago, you can often reimburse yourself for those past expenses, making it a powerful tax-free source of cash flow in retirement.
We should also touch on the reality for high-income earners who are still in this messy middle.
Yes.
Many of them are going to hit that Roth IRA income phase-out range. For singles in 2026, it's between $153,000 and $168,000. How do they still get access to that coveted tax-free growth?
That's the famous backdoor Roth strategy.
Right.
It's a technique that involves 2 steps. Step 1, you make a non-deductible contribution to a traditional IRA. This is allowed no matter what your income is.
And step 2?
Step 2, you immediately convert that money into a Roth IRA. This bypasses the income caps, and it allows high-income earners to benefit from that tax-free growth and withdrawals later.
Are there any technical pitfalls or caveats our informed listener really needs to be aware of here?
Yes, there's a big one. It's called the pro rata rule.
The pro rata rule.
If you have any existing pre-tax funds in any traditional SEP or simple IRA accounts, the conversion will be taxed proportionally.
So it gets messy.
It gets very messy. For this strategy to work cleanly, the high-income earner needs to have a clean slate. That means all their existing IRA funds have to be either zero or already converted into a Roth or rolled into their current 401k.
So it demands really meticulous execution to avoid those unintended tax consequences.
You have to get it right.
Okay, now that we've built a theoretical framework for cash flow, debt, and taxes, let's see these concepts in action. There's really nothing like a real-world example to show how momentum starts and how a behavioral change can translate into a financial victory.
Looking at these stories of debt management success, it really drives home both the behavioral and the mathematical parts of this journey. The source material gave us 3 distinct, highly instructive examples.
The first story is about Alex, who you call the avalanche victor. This is the disciplined mathematical purist.
That's right. Alex, like a lot of people in the messy middle, he was facing significant student loan debt alongside some smaller consumer debts. He recognized that those student loans had pretty high interest rates, so he consciously chose the mathematically superior avalanche method.
And his process was methodical.
Completely. He listed every single debt by interest rate. He targeted the single highest one first, and he poured all his surplus capital, every penny beyond the minimums, into that one liability.
What were the specific actions he took to find that surplus capital in his budget?
Well, his strategy focused on meticulous expense tracking. He went beyond a rough budget to minute detail. He found he was spending nearly $400 a month on recurring subscriptions and meal delivery services.
That cut them.
He cut them immediately. And on top of that, he recognized that his peak earning years meant he needed to maximize income, so he took on a side job for 18 months.
And result of that meticulous, math-driven approach, plus the extra income.
By rigorously committing to that avalanche strategy, Alex cleared $50,000 of debt in just 3 years.
Incredible.
His story really highlights not just the math, but the mindset. You have to treat high-interest debt as a guaranteed negative return that just must be eliminated with extreme prejudice.
Okay, our second story is Sarah. And she focuses less on the math and more on conquering a destructive spending behavior.
Sarah was grappling with high-interest credit card debt, and it was often fueled by impulsive shopping. It's the classic scenario where lifestyle creep is funded by plastic.
Her problem wasn't capacity to pay, it was habit.
Exactly. So her strategy involved a radical behavioral shift. She adopted a strict cash-only policy for all non-essential purchases.
Physical cash.
Physical cash. She would put cash in envelopes marked for groceries, entertainment, clothes. That was it.
And that shift from, an intangible swipe of plastic to physical cash, it changes the psychology of spending completely.
It makes the pain of the purchase immediate and tangible. The sources highlight that Sarah had to consciously break that psychological link between I want it and I'll swipe for it. And at the same time, she restructured her cash flow to dramatically increase her monthly payments beyond the minimums.
So what was the lasting impact for her?
Well, Sarah's success wasn't just measured in the debt dollars she paid off, but in her behavioral transformation. She eliminated the debt, sure, but she also adopted a more minimalist lifestyle that brought her a lasting sense of financial peace. It proves that sometimes the simplest solutions, like the friction of paying with cash, are the most effective.
And finally, we have the Johnsons, who really demonstrate the power of collaboration in the messy middle.
The Johnsons had a mix of liabilities. They had car loans, medical bills, credit card debt, and it required a unified joint effort, which is so common for families.
They had to get on the same page.
They recognized they couldn't attack the debt if they weren't operating from the same playbook. So their crucial first step was attending financial literacy classes together. It ensured they were both aligned on strategy and on their goals.
So that combination of education and then simplification must have been really powerful.
It was. They used a debt consolidation loan to streamline all those multiple high-interest payments into a single lower-rate monthly bill. That simplification, it reduced the administrative hassle, and it lowered their overall interest payments.
And their results.
This strategy allowed them to become debt-free within 5 years. And it just demonstrates how essential open communication, family budgeting, and joint decision-making are when liabilities are shared. A key takeaway there is that for a family unit in the messy middle, financial success requires both partners to fully own the strategy.
Okay, transitioning now into more advanced strategies. We're moving beyond just accumulating capital to protecting it. For someone in their 30s or 40s, the single most valuable asset isn't their investment portfolio.
Not even close.
It's their future earning potential, the engine that creates all the wealth.
That is precisely what we call the human life value. Over a 20 or 30-year span, your lifetime earnings capacity could total several $1 million. Protecting that income stream from disruption, either from death or disability, is the most fundamental act of risk transfer you can undertake in this phase.
And this requires moving beyond those simple rules of thumb for insurance coverage, like 10 times your salary.
Right.
So how do we put a realistic number on that protection using the DIME method?
The DIME methodology, which stands for debts, income, mortgage, education, is really the gold standard for calculating term life insurance because it focuses on covering specific, measurable financial burdens. It forces you to be granular.
Okay, start with D, M, and E, the easier ones.
D is for debts. You total all your non-mortgage obligations. Car loans, student loans, credit card balances, personal loans. These are the immediate burdens that need to be lifted.
M is mortgage.
M is mortgage, the full payoff amount. Housing security is just paramount for the surviving family.
Different.
E is for education and everything else. This is the cushion. You're projecting costs for higher education, maybe $100,000 to $150,000 per child, plus final expenses, and an extra cushion for immediate quality of life adjustments.
And finally, the big one, for income replacement. The critique here is that people often wildly overestimate this number. How do we calculate a realistic lump sum?
So first, you need to determine how many years the family needs that replacement income. It's often 20 to 25 years until the children are financially independent.
Okay.
But the critical detail here is that you do not just multiply the annual salary by the number of years.
Why not?
Because the lump sum you provide will be immediately invested by the surviving spouse.
So the lump sum itself starts generating its own income.
Exactly. The source material notes that a properly invested lump sum will generate investment returns that cover a significant portion of the annual income needed. For example, replacing $60,000 per year for 25 years does not require $1.5 million.
It requires less.
Due to the compounding of the capital, it requires approximately $1.23 million. You're only drawing down a fraction of the principal each year, while the rest continues to grow, so you need a smaller, more realistic initial coverage amount.
That's a really practical and grounding detail. But as you mentioned, protection isn't just about death. It's about the risk of becoming unable to work during your prime earning years.
Absolutely. Disability protection, both short-term and long-term, is statistically essential. The risk of an illness or an injury disrupting your work during your peak career years is far more likely than premature death.
So what's the recommendation?
Experts universally recommend securing coverage that replaces 60 to 70% of your gross income.
And why 60% specifically?
Because the benefits are often received tax-free. So 60% usually equates to about 100% of your current take-home pay. This ensures a health crisis does not immediately become a financial crisis, preserving your human life value while you are still alive.
Now we shift to another unique financial pressure on this demographic.
The sandwich generation.
The sandwich generation, simultaneously caring for your kids and possibly your aging parents. How can we use the tax code to manage these huge, often unexpected family costs?
This is where the recent legislative changes, specifically the Secure 2.0 Act and the related updates for 2026, provide massive targeted relief, particularly around the 529 Education Savings Plan.
Let's start with the 529 flexibility for current K-12 costs.
Right. So the ability to use 529 funds for K-12 tuition is expanding significantly. Starting in 2026, the annual K-12 withdrawal limit is doubling from $10,000 to $20,000 per student.
$20,000, wow.
And the list of eligible K-12 expenses has broadened to include crucial non-tuition items.
Like what?
Standardized test fees, private tutoring, specific educational therapies like ADHD-related support, and even structured homeschool curriculum materials. This is key for families trying to optimize expenses today.
But the single biggest fear people always had about 529 plans was overfunding it. That potential penalty if your kid gets a scholarship and doesn't need all the money.
Secure 2.0 completely solved this problem. It eliminated that behavioral hesitation to save aggressively for education.
How?
It created the ultimate release valve. Unused 529 funds can now be rolled into the beneficiary's Roth IRA up to a lifetime limit of $35,000 without tax or penalty.
A tax-free transfer from an education account, which has grown tax-free, straight into a retirement account that will also be withdrawn tax-free. I mean, that is incredibly powerful.
It is a complete game changer. It effectively eliminates the risk of oversaving for college. But our deep dive audience needs the technical caveats.
Of course.
This transfer isn't instantaneous. You can only roll over the amount of earned income the beneficiary has in that year up to the IRA contribution limit.
And there's a time limit.
And the 529 account must have been open for at least 15 years. This turns the strategy into a long-term, multi-year plan, not a one-time clean-out. But it allows parents in their 30s and 40s to save aggressively for education, knowing they are also effectively seeding their child's retirement savings early, giving them a massive compounding advantage.
What about the other side of the sandwich generation? The care costs, whether for young children or aging parents.
For working families managing either childcare or elder care costs, the Dependent Care Flexible Spending Account, or FSA, is a vital pre-tax benefit.
And the limit is going up.
The contribution limit is increasing from $5,000 to $7,500 for tax years starting in 2026. This allows you to pay for daycare, after-school programs, or qualified elder care with pre-tax dollars, which significantly reduces the net cash flow cost of care without increasing your tax burden.
Okay, this decade isn't just about accumulating money in retirement accounts. It's about managing taxes in the taxable brokerage world, beyond those accounts. So what does this all mean when we talk about sophisticated investment management for your surplus capital?
It means moving past just basic saving to active tax management. And that's primarily through two advanced tools: asset location and tax loss harvesting. This is all about minimizing tax drag.
Let's define asset location first. Why does it matter where I hold a specific investment?
Asset location is about placing the right investment in the right account based on its tax inefficiency. Any investment that generates a lot of ordinary income or has high turnover.
Like what?
High-yield corporate bonds, actively managed mutual funds, or real estate investment trusts, REITs, that distribute income. These are considered highly tax inefficient.
And those should go where?
They belong in your tax-deferred accounts, your 401k, your traditional IRA. By placing them there, the income they generate is sheltered until retirement. You defer paying income tax on all that high-yield interest until you eventually withdraw the money, allowing for maximum compounding.
And then the efficient investments go into my regular taxable brokerage account.
Precisely. Tax-efficient investments like low-turnover index funds, broad market ETFs, or municipal bonds, they generate very few taxable events annually. So they're perfectly suited for your regular taxable accounts because they minimize that annual tax drag. This whole strategy systematically postpones taxes until you are potentially in a lower bracket during retirement.
We also have the tactical tool of tax loss harvesting, which sounds complex, but it can be really beneficial.
It is essential if you're managing a large taxable portfolio. Tax loss harvesting is the tactical move of selling investments that have declined in value specifically to realize a loss.
And what do you do with that loss?
That realized loss can then be used to offset any capital gains you realized elsewhere in your portfolio, or you can even use it to offset up to $3,000 of your ordinary income in a given year, thereby reducing your overall tax liability.
Are there any immediate caveats to tax loss harvesting that the listener has to know?
Yes, the critical rule is the wash sale rule.
The wash sale rule.
You cannot sell a security for a loss and then buy the same or a substantially identical security within 30 days before or after the sale. If you do that, the loss is disallowed by the IRS.
So you had to buy something similar but not identical?
Exactly. You immediately buy a similar but not identical index fund to maintain your exposure to the market while still realizing that tax benefit. It's an essential tool for rebalancing without incurring a massive tax bill, but it requires discipline.
Finally, let's talk about allocation for the 30-plus professional. They still have a huge time horizon ahead of them, 20 to 30 years.
For this demographic, the primary investment vehicle has to be the growth portfolio. This is a portfolio that consists mostly of stocks, often 80 to 95% stocks.
And the goal is appreciation.
The goal is to capture maximum capital appreciation over 2 decades, even if that means accepting higher short-term volatility. The biggest long-term risk for this age group isn't volatility, it's inflation eroding your purchasing power.
And this contrasts sharply with a strategy for someone who's nearing retirement.
Correct. Later in life, you shift to a balanced portfolio that incorporates a higher percentage of fixed income, of bonds, to reduce volatility and preserve capital.
And for those who want this transition, managed automatically, which is a great solution for the busy professional in the messy middle.
Target date funds, or TDFs, are the solution.
TDFs automate that entire shifting mix through their structure.
They follow what's called a glide path. So take, for instance, a Vanguard 2055 target date fund. Right now, its allocation is highly aggressive. It's about 91.5% stocks and almost 8% bonds to maximize growth.
And over time,
as the year 2055 approaches, the fund automatically and gradually shifts to a more conservative allocation. It handles all those delicate and critical asset allocation decisions for you without any intervention required.
We've covered a staggering amount of detailed information here, from behavioral budgeting all the way to the intricacies of Secured 2.0 and tactical asset management. So what does this all mean? What should the listener be doing today?
We've broken this down into 5 immediate Wealthnetic action items you can execute tonight or this week to immediately start architecting your wealth in the messy middle.
Action item 1, protection first.
Run the dime numbers. Do not rely on old advice. Use the dime method tonight to get a clear, realistic estimate of your family's actual life insurance needs. Calculate your debts, your income replacement using that invested lump sum approach, your mortgage payoff, and your education costs. Secure your family's future with an accurate number based on your granular needs.
Action item 2, attack the drag.
Audit the 6% drag. List all your non-mortgage debts and identify every liability with an interest rate over 6%. Before you put new capital into any taxable investing, aggressively target those debts. For anything over 15%, commit to the mathematically superior avalanche method to eliminate it as fast as humanly possible. Maximize your guaranteed return.
Action item 3, leverage that tax shield.
Automate and check the 2026 maxes. Review your payroll deferrals right now. Ensure you are maximizing contributions to all your tax-advantaged accounts to leverage those new 2026 limits. We're talking $24,500 for your 401k, $7,500 for your IRA, and up to $8,750 for a family HSA. Leverage that compounding growth while it's completely tax-sheltered.
Action item 4, structural safety.
Tier your cash. Stop thinking of your emergency fund as one single bucket. Re-engineer it into a tiered liquidity ladder, $1,000 for spending shocks in an accessible savings account, 3 to 6 months of essentials for income shocks held safely in a money market or a CD, and then consider strategically placing that 12-month transition subsidy in a Roth IRA to gain potential growth.
And action item 5, the foundational legal work.
Review beneficiaries and protection. Basic estate planning is absolutely non-negotiable in this phase of life. At a minimum, ensure your beneficiaries are up to date on all your financial accounts, your IRA, 401k, life insurance. More importantly, if you have minor children, you absolutely must have a will in place, if only to designate legal guardianship. That simple document secures your children's future more than any investment ever could.
This deep dive has shown that the 30s and 40s require moving from basic savings to a sophisticated architecture. It's built on structured cash flow, optimized liability management, and maximizing tax-efficient investment vehicles. Remember, the most powerful asset you possess right now is simply time. Use it strategically, not impulsively.
And if we connect this all back to the legislative changes that enable confidence, just consider the massive change the Secure 2.0 Act made to 529 plans. The traditional biggest financial fear surrounding a 529 was overfunding it, leading to penalties.
Right.
The new Roth IRA rollover rule, allowing that $35,000 lifetime limit transfer, it completely eliminates that behavioral obstacle to saving aggressively. So the ultimate provocative thought for you today is this. If you knew, without any doubt, that you could never oversave for your child's education or your future, would you be contributing more today?
Take these action items, explore the original source material we discussed for further detail, and start building that financial architecture. Thanks for diving deep with us.